Salvete! Hello everybody. Welcome to another video, this time a cultural video with some language involved. So in the last cultural video I showed you a series of coins, imperial coins reflecting aspects of Roman religion. Those coins were of course controlled by the emperor himself, or certainly those closest to him, his closest advisors and ministers of sorts. Even the coinage, the bronze coinage, which was technically under the authority of the Senate, would certainly have been watched over by the emperor and his officials as well, just to make sure the messages that were going out to the world on those coins, the kind of news broadcast of the day, the propaganda, to make sure that was all in keeping with what the emperor wanted to make known. So we go from there, information being transmitted very much from the halls of power. When we read Roman literature, be it Cicero or Pliny, we're dealing with writers who are very much part of the political circles, who were well-to-do, had money for the most part, and men. We don't hear very much from your average person, your average man and woman. They're removed from our sight. There are references made to them, to the people, the populace, to the poor, but we don't hear their voices. The only place, to my knowledge, where we start to get a little bit of a feel for the people is actually on the tombstones, on the funerary inscriptions. And this is something I find quite interesting, where we do get the voices almost calling to us through the mist of all the ages and all the centuries, millennia in fact, speaking out and referring to their loved ones, husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, children, in a very touching, a very humane way. So I thought today I'd just share a few of these with you. So I've taken these from a collection by Hermann Dessau, a German scholar who catalogued inscriptions from the Roman world towards the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. So I've taken these from his book. It tells me for each one where this particular inscription was found, sometimes the date it was first uncovered. So I'm going to share some of them with you. For those of you who've been doing Latin a little while, you might like to have a go at seeing if you can decipher some of the inscriptions yourselves, in which case, as soon as it appears on the screen, I've just typed them up for you today. Feel free to pause it, see what you can work out, what you can decipher, maybe even just a few words, the ages, perhaps using the numerals, where there are numerals presented, and then unpause it to hear what I've got to say. I don't claim to be an expert on these matters, but I've been looking into this for a fair while, so I feel I can certainly get the gist of what they're saying. So, without further ado, guys, our first one, I'm just going to have to look at my book here as I'm doing this. Right, so pause if you need to. Okay, so what have we got here? Well, this monument, this inscription, and I should say, by the way, these are not rich people's cemeteries or tombs. These are what they would call the columbaria, and these were often communal burying places, were often a kind of circular vault, so to speak, and there would be little niches going all around, rows and rows of niches, and in which would be placed a small jar, an ulla, which would contain the ashes of the deceased, and maybe a titulus, a little title, an inscription, just saying who it was, and probably not a great deal more, depending how much you paid. And people did indeed pay for these. The poor, the slaves, freedmen, freedwomen joined what were called collegium, colleges, societies, and there were burial societies where people would put away a little bit of money on a regular basis to pay for their little niche, to pay for this little spot where their ashes would be kept, displayed, and their name and maybe a few other details shown. So these were the columbaria, and these are where today's inscriptions are taken from. So we're certainly dealing with the poorer, or perhaps should I say more average person, your normal person within the Roman Empire, and most of these from Rome or Italy. So the first one is set up, this particular inscription with next to a jar of the Felix, who was slave, S-E-R, Savos, slave of a Marcus Satellite Ticius. And this Felix lived, Vixit, for how many years have we got there? Can you read that? X is 10, V is 5, 19 years. He was 19 years of age when he died. And to this person, Huik, Hygia, Sawa, slave. She's a lady of Flavia Antiochis. This person, Hygia, has set up this columbarium, this niche, this little burial spot for Felix. In addition, cum olli set titulo, with the jars and a little title, a little inscription. She has set this up and paid for it, presumably, for a benemerito contubernali, for a most well-deserving of merit husband. The word contubernalis was not the word that would be used legally for a husband if you were a Roman citizen, a legal Roman citizen. You didn't acquire such citizenship as a slave, and so the word they used, I mean, they were married for all intents and purposes as I understand it, but they were not legally, at least, able to use the term maritos and uxor is wife, so they used contubernalis, which is literally tent mate. So the contubernium was the slave marriage. So she's actually using this, she's referring to her most deserving husband who passed away at the age of 19 as her contubernalis. Furthermore, it's also dedicated, or a spot there's also for primigenia filia, the daughter, primigenia, primogeniture, perhaps it was her firstborn, who lived sadly just 3 years. So husband and daughter. And then we've got another person here, Aulena Nebris, has set up or paid for this columbarium, this spot, for Hygia herself. So what I think is going on here, I'm not certain that Hygia, or Hygias, again, sounds like a Greek name to me, paid for and set up this niche, this spot for her husband upon his death, and then also for her daughter, first a young daughter of 3 years old, 3 years of age, and then when she herself died, this other person who we don't know who she is, Aulena Nebris, has paid for the columbarium, for the niche, the funeral niche, for Hygia herself. Alright, so there we've got a slave, a female slave, setting up an inscription and a funeral spot, a burial spot, so to speak, for the urn, for the ashes, for her late husband who was also a slave. Right, so that's our first one. Next one then, let me just consult my book. Right, let's have a look at this one. Found in Rome. In this wall, the columbaria, the niches, the funeral niches, which are to be found on all the wall, and all the jugs from, or the urns, from the ground up to the vault where it meets the ceiling, and all those in front of the little shrine for the bones of Ophelia Myrtis, all of these are by law belonging to me, to my descendants and their descendants, and all of this I have acquired in their honour. So don't be touching our urns, don't be using this space. I've paid for this, for my family, for my descendants. Similar one now, the next one. Lucius Hostilius Fortunatus. The verb is fecit, has made or produced, put up, bought this space, perhaps, this spot, for himself and his daughter, Hostilia Januaria, likewise for his freedmen and freedwomen, and their descendants too. So he's invested for the family and all of those yet to come. Exterae familiae additus non datur. Access to any others beyond this family is not allowed, nor by law should anybody buy funeral jars, urns, to be placed in this monument. So again, we've got this very much marking the territory, saving up perhaps, and then finally purchasing a spot or a number of niches. I mean, in some cases, perhaps it was a small columbarium, a small tomb, or it may have just been a section of a public tomb. Who knows? Difficult to know, really. But in any case, there's a marking off of a territory here and saying this is for mine, for my family, and my looking after the freedmen and freedwomen and their descendants as well. The relationship between a former master who was the patronus, a kind of patron, and his freedmen and freedwomen was a very important kind of sacred relationship, and it was transmitted down the generations as well. It's like a patron and client. So we see this here with for the ancestors, or for the descendants, for the descendants of my freedmen and freedwomen. So really looking out for them, which is quite sweet, isn't it? Let's move on then, guys. I've got some more. Excuse me if I'm looking down. They're all numbered 7965. Right. You often see this DM on the tombstones or by the inscriptions. Dis manibus. It means to the shades below, the kind of underworld, the spirits beyond. They had a vague conception. It wasn't a very well articulated and thought out concept of what happened after death. I don't think the Romans were that way inclined. They were far too practical. But certainly dis manibus, there was something after, and it was very important. There were these kind of spirits or whatever. It was very important to honour one's deceased relatives as part of the value of pietas, piety. Oh, hang on, everything. My books are falling down here. Right. So, to Lucio, or Lucius Tarquitius Marcianus, a most sweet son, who lived, could you read that? 9 years, 6 months, and what's that? 16, 17, 18, 19 days. Oh my goodness. And 11 hours. So that's quite specific, isn't it? Lucius Tarquitius Marcianus. This is being dedicated to him. It's in the dative, as a very sweet, loving son who lived 9 years, 6 months, 19 days and 6 hours. Who is setting this up, paying for this? Lucius Tarquitius Trophimus, Tarquitia Eutychia, parentes, his parents, fecerunt, they did this, they made this, purchased this, set this up for their very sweet son, whose body has been buried in front of this little shrine on account ponderous of its weight. I'm not sure about that bit. In any case, he was very young. It's very sad, that one, isn't it? So 2 parents setting up for their young son, which is my next one. 859 7986. Right, this is a short one. Dis manibus, again, to the shades below. Julia Urbana, the mother, has made this, set this up for the ashes of Julia Secundilla, the daughter, who lived 9 years. Secundilla. Makes you wonder if that was her second daughter. Secundus, but it could just be maybe connected to the father's name or something, we don't know. So, to the shades below, Julia Urbana sets up this monument here, this spot. This was found in Rome, connected to the Familia Marcella, Marcellan family apparently. Julia Urbana, the mother to her daughter, Julia Secundilla, 9 years of age. Right, last couple. This one's interesting. Dis manibus, to the shades below. This monument, this spot is dedicated to Claudia Lepidilla. Beautiful names, aren't they? Especially the female names. Really rings similar to the modern Italian, doesn't it? Claudia Lepidilla, coming from the province, born in the province of Belgica, Belgium. Fecerunt liberi eius, her children, her sons have set this up for her, her sons being Lepidus and Trebellius, matri optimi, for a most excellent, for the best of mothers, the best mother, Claudia Lepidilla. Hic here, matris cineres, the ashes of the mother. Here we consecrated them with this single little shrine, or this little vessel, this container, depending on exactly what it was. The bones which the earth produced, it now covers with this little mound. Two loving sons setting one up. My last one. Another short one. DM, dis manibus, Tertius, to Tertius the brother. Soror means sister. The sister, a sister, fecit means has done, has made, has produced, has put this up, set up this little inscription, this little spot for his urn. To Tertius, her most well-deserving brother, who lived more or less, plus minus, more or less, 31 years. Orco peregrino. Orcus is the underworld, the life beyond, so it's, or the god of that realm, whatever this person was thinking of. This was found in Naples, so it's also dedicated to the gods below, the underworld. It's interesting, Tertius also means third. One wonders if he was the third brother, or that was his name, or it was his name on account of that. I really don't know. But in any case, a sister whose name is not given has set this up for her very well deserving brother Tertius, who lived more or less 31 years. So not even a precise date, guys, on that. No record, clearly, about 31 years. So there's something clearly very sad about these, but obviously something very touching to just tap into the lives of everyday people who couldn't afford their own personalised tombs and fancy gravestones, but just had a little niche, a little spot in a larger burial area, the columbaria, amongst many other people, and they just had a little urn, a ulla, for their ashes, and a little inscription. And these are what we're reading concerning brothers and sisters and mothers and children and their ages. It's very touching, isn't it? It saddens one somewhat, but it is nice to kind of connect with the words that were written and produced for the loved ones of ordinary people, everyday people, as opposed to constantly reading about emperors and men of money and all the rest of it. So anyway, I hope you found that interesting. I found it there are pages and pages in this book, and I could just keep reading, and I probably will. I might do another one. Let me know if you want more. They're organised in sets, so for different tradespeople, for gladiators, bakers, all sorts of monuments and inscriptions. So guys, that's 20 minutes, so that'll do for this one, and I'll be back soon with a language video. Take care, walete.